Well, what is the true history of Earth and who are we descended from? Are the Pleiadians our ancestors, and is it a combination of several species? To chat about that and more, I'm going to welcome Stevan Strong. Hi, Stevan, welcome.
G'day, how are you?
Really good. This is a fascinating topic. We touched on this recently with Mary Rodwell. We talked about the Pleiadian prophecy, and we didn't really get right into it, but the response was fantastic. So I thought I would ask you to come on and talk about this. So
Yeah.
I guess my first question would be, what is our alien ancestry?
Well, it varies, doesn't it? When you talk about Australia, it strikes me that there's an exclusivity in Australia in relation to the Pleiades. All of the elders, in fact, you've got to remember in Australia, there are 500 tribes, or 400 to 500 tribes, and each of them have different languages, different culture, different landscapes, and they all have different dreaming stories, but there is one dreaming story that transcends tribal estates, which is the seven sisters from the Pleiades. There's no seven sisters from Sirius, Andromeda. There's no mention with any elder I've spoken to anywhere in this country of any other place bar the Pleiades. I remember I had elders that would ring me up and they'd always close with the same thing. I remember my Uncle Jerry would always say before he passed on, and don't forget, my grandmother told me the Pleiadians are our brothers and sisters. That's something in Australia there is no deviation upon. Now, I have no doubt that when we talk about Africa and Michael Challenger's work, they'll talk about Syrians and we'll talk about others who've been there. And I don't believe in the rest of the world there was any sort of limitation on who could come and go. But in Australia, I believe from the very beginning and all the way through, it's a Pleiadian only entry. So it's no surprise that if there was going to be a prophecy about anything the Pleiadians did, it would have to be in Australia first, because that's where this all begins. So it's a commonality. It's with dreaming stories. I remember when Kano, we'd had one rock, the most important rock of our collection. Didn't tell me a thing about it for about 2.5 years, and then finally told me the dreaming story. And lo and behold, it's about the Pleiades again. So yeah, it's just part of the ancestry of original people, and it's part of the original history, and it's been stolen. And the elders want it back. And that's what this is about to an extent. And of course, whether they put it back or not, when it comes the end of this year, if they don't put it back, the Pleiades will put it back anyway. So it's not really a big issue. The Pleiadian importance with Australia and with the planet and the plans for the future, according to all of the elders we've spoken to, well, that'll come out anyway. And then everyone's going to have to decide whether they believe it or not. And that's not really our problem.
Yeah,
So no, this is what it's about here. It's about the Pleiades.
Well, since I've been in the United States, and you know, I talk to friends over here, and we talk about the original people of Australia and their culture, and I always talk about their dreaming stories, and a lot of them have no idea what I'm talking about. So maybe for our audience, and I would say the majority are here in the United States, maybe explain to them what the dreaming stories are.
Oh God, that's difficult. Fair income. It's like trying to explain Aboriginal moieties, which are considered the most complex social structure in the world. The dreaming, it's not a religion. You've got to understand the original people don't actually have gods. It's very important that we have spirits and we have sky heroes. Sky heroes are people who come from another place. I mean, Bayami is a sky hero. The spirits are in the lamb. It's a bit like this. The dreaming means this, that who I talk to, when I'm allowed to talk to them, will be decided by the dreaming. If, for example, I marry a woman, from that day on, I will never be able to look at her mother. And if I wish to speak to her mother, I would have to tell someone else who could tell someone else who would then tell her, and then she would come back to me. There are prescriptions that go past what you think a religion is. Now, what that means is very important. I know that on occasions, you may not understand this, but quite a few men, then when they marry women, the mothers never think they're worthy. Well, we never have that conversation because it goes through other people both ways. So it ameliorates a social situation that could cause grief in a clan situation of 50 people where we can't have that. So it could mean this. Maybe one day I've done something wrong. Perhaps I've been to a sacred women's site. Well, then what will happen is a bird will come and tell one of the women. And when women will come and ask me, have you been near that site? Well, I have to say I have been because I can't lie. Because if I did, the spirits would hear that lie and I'd be punished again. So it's a more all-pervasive thing. It's a bit like when you're walking down the street, they're watching you. When you're climbing up a tree, they're watching you. And if you do something wrong, that dreaming story will come back. It'll come back as a dream. It might come back as a bird telling someone else, but there'll be a repercussion because what it's basically saying is the earth is aware of every step you take and is aware of your inner motives. And if you're doing something that's not in accord with the spiritual rules or the rules of the planet, you'll be found out. So the dreaming is, it's hard to say. It's like we're living in a dream that we create. We create this dream every day and we have choices, and those choices create our dreams again. They see that also. So it's really, look, to give you an idea what I mean, when we have children who become teenagers, we sit them in a classroom somewhere and they do a test. And that's their initiation into adulthood. When original people do this, they go off into the bush for 4 months and they find their spirit and they find their dreaming. Now, here's the point. This is the big difference. There'll be an uncle watching from a distance all the time, but never with them. They go into it yourself. So your dreaming is not, I found a book. I know what this means now, and I see that I've got to do these particular liturgies and I've got to do these prayers. It's not like that. You go and find your own dreaming, and it'll be personal for each person because we all believe in incarnation. So we bring our baggage from before. So it's that connection between the spirits and us, and it never finishes. For example, women give birth to a child. The spirit makes a decision when that happens. The man supplies sperm. That's it. The sperm can be there day after day after day. It's got nothing to do with the male about when that child comes into fruition. It's to do with the spirits and the woman. So it creates a different situation where you're always accountable for your action and you know you can't get away with anything. I remember when we started doing a talk once, somebody asked me once, did everyone in Australia believe in a God? And the answer was straight away, absolutely. There's no questioning because their gods are everywhere. They're in a bird, they're in the land, they're in the change of the day, and you can't escape it. So it's an all-pervasive acknowledgement of the fact that we're part of the earth.
Right, right. And on that particular point, this is probably at the core of the Pleiadian prophecy, isn't it? That the earth is aware of everything that goes on.
Yeah, that's the whole point. The prophecy, I know that Mary would have mentioned it to you in passing, but she didn't know about it until I told her about it. The prophecy is, from what I've seen, what I have is I have 3 lines of mediators or interlocutors who are telling me things that come directly from the elders doing this. I have not met them. I've not met any of them. I mean, one came to our house once, but I've not been to Uluru at any stage. So this prophecy has been 3 years in fruition, and it's came through those 3 sources and others. And primarily, it goes something like this, and I'll try and give it in a bit more detail than I normally do. The Pleiadians came here a long, long time ago, and they spent time with original people. But I've got to make a point about this, and you've got to understand this, ladies and gentlemen. Stop placing any alien above humans. You're wasting your time. It's not like that. They don't see it like that. Sure, when you go on technology, we're at the bottom of the stack, but we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to be involved in technology. Every time we get involved in technology, it turns out like it does now. We haven't picked that up yet. We've gone down this path before. Now, the aliens primarily, I don't know how to put this. It's a bit like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I did actually say that once to an elder, and they got very upset when I said that. It's an experiment. It's been going on here. And why is it that aliens and extraterrestrials from all over the cosmos have deserted their home life and live here, their home base, have been here for so long? It was an experiment that had a use-by date, which is 9:04 p.m. at Uluru on the 21st of December. It was always meant to be that way. Now, my understanding is, from what I've been told by many different people, when they left some time ago, they left behind an escape clause for humanity. And now the elders call it, I was quite surprised when they put it up publicly, they call it a magic box. But can I explain to anyone who thinks I'll go and find the box? It's not a pirate box. Don't think you're going to find a box as such. It's not like that. It was placed at Uluru. I'm going to be vague about quite a few things because I have to be. The box was placed there hundreds of thousands of years ago for the times like this particular time. They knew it was going to happen. This was a culmination of something, an event that's been running for hundreds of thousands of years. Okay, and it sat there. About 3 years ago, I got a phone call from Brendan Murray, Utica. Now, his great-great-great-grandfather signed the treaty with John Batman, which was the only treaty in Australia ever signed between Aboriginal people and the British. I know in America, you sign lots of treaties there and then break them. Well, we don't even have a treaty to sign in Australia, which means legally Aboriginal people didn't live here. Well, anyway, they took that treaty back up to Sydney and they burnt it. But what I'm getting at is this particular gentleman is the great-great-grandson. So the people who speak to me aren't just people walking through the streets. They know their business. And he told me this. He said, there's a change coming. And he told me 3 years ago, he said, it's going to be December 2020. And I said at the time, mate, don't even talk dates with me, man. I'm not touching them. I will never publicly announce a date like I just did a minute ago. I said, I'm not touching that. And he said, they're coming, but. And he was telling me they were actually coming. Well, they're actually not. They may be coming after the event. I'm not sure about this because I've got to tell you, I get different stories. There's variations, small variations, but there's a commonality too. It could be they're coming after the event. I had a real issue about them coming before the event. And you can see what the issue is. Very simply, Dean, if they come 2 days before the event, everyone sees them and says, oh shit, the hippies were right. I'll join them now. I'll be part of that team. Right. It's a bit like Jesus is on a cross. Okay, now I'll join up. That doesn't work for me. And it turns out that wasn't the case. Okay, so they come. Brendan thought, well, I think he thought that, but I'm not sure. He thought that it was probably the machine was in the actual UFO, but it's not. It's in Uluru. And I can't say more than that, but it's there somewhere.
Well, is somebody supposed to turn it on, or is?
Yes. There's two parts to that. What they've said, and I'm only going to use what they've said, they needed a device. Now, I know what the device is, and of course, I'm not going to say that because they've announced this publicly, and there's some things we don't want to give up. They know what the device is. There's a device that can open the box, okay? Now, the timing is essential. It has to be at that particular time. It's a solstice. It's an alignment of Jupiter and Saturn. It is an alignment they've been waiting hundreds and hundreds of years for this to happen. Ceremonies have been taking place for the last 9 years. This is not the first ceremony. This is the final ceremony. Now, the box sits there. They know the songs. They are right now, as I speak, still looking for the box. I'm going to make that point. It's been made clear to me. I haven't found it yet. And here's the point, ladies and gentlemen. If they don't find it, we're done for. because I know what the alternative, they've been very clear about that. The Earth will clean itself up and will be moved off completely. But that's further down the line. So let us assume they do find this particular box and they have the device. Yes, the device they have, okay. And they open it up. Now, I thought it was at 9 o'clock at night. Well, I saw this gentleman again. It's not 9 o'clock. It's 9:04, he told me with a smile on his face. Very specific about the timing here. It has to be down to the second. It's to do with planetary alignments. It's not astrology, it's astronomy. Okay, if it is opened, you've got to understand this thing is resonating on the planet. And you probably are aware of the fact that over the last year and a half, the Schumann resonance is flying all over the place. It's preparing itself. Because what this box does is if it's turned on, it heals the planet from within. The planet is out of balance. It is severely out of balance and it's about to correct itself. As you know, the North Pole is going walkabout. It's now somewhere in Siberia wandering off on its own and it doesn't know where it's going. It will reset itself. But here's the point. It can only reset itself. It feeds on energy and amplifies it. And it feeds off the energy of the inhabitants of this planet, which is us. And what it feeds off is positive energy only. Now, I've been telling people, and the elders have been telling me, they told me there was going to be a pandemic this year. They told me there was going to be a war. They told me there was going to be unemployment. They told me this was going to be the most fearful year ever. They want it fearful. They've created this situation because they know this box will not work if there aren't enough souls that are meditating towards giving their positive energy and are not tainted by all the shit that's going on at the moment. This is what this is all about. We knew about this years ago. I can tell you of an elder that made a prediction that I completely forgot until someone told me about it 5 years ago. Her name is Auntie Minnie Mace. And someone asked her, how will we know when the change begins? She said, you will know because of something that no one will suspect will take place. She said, people will fight for toilet rolls. People will be arguing over toilet rolls. They'll sell it on eBay. And she said, the world will go crazy over toilet rolls. And this lady was with me telling me about this. And she said, remember when Auntie Minnie said that to us? And I looked at her and thought, no, I don't remember that. And I said to Evan, do you remember? Because we were there. And she said, I don't remember it. But she did say it because this woman bought toilet pulp rolls then. She bought a whole room full of toilet rolls and kept them for 3 years. And after 3 years, thought, Auntie Minnie's crazy. And so she used them up. And 2 weeks before the thing started, she used the last toilet roll. My point is, if the elders know about a toilet roll as a sign of the change, don't dismiss this, okay? Because how many people would have predicted that 5 years ago? And the answer is no one. But they knew.
Yeah, usually when I hear the Earth is going to correct itself, I immediately think natural disaster.
No. There's an alternative, and this is what I think they all knew about. No, there's two ways of doing this. One way is natural disaster, but there's a problem with that. There's a drawback. All the animals get punished, and they shouldn't because they did nothing wrong. There's only one animal on this planet that's not playing the rules properly. They think they're intelligent. They're the only ones who don't understand how to live on their own nest. No, this is the chance where we can do it ourselves. And if we don't do it, the Earth will. It's really that simple. It's gearing up now. It's preparing us. The reason it peaks and then drops back down is preparing us for what this thing will do. Okay, so let's say there are enough people. They have to be, to begin with, in Australia, because it starts in Australia and goes around the whole world. If that number is correct, and I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have the number. I know what it is, and I'm not allowed to say it, but I can tell you it runs into 6 figures. We're talking 100,000, 200,000, something like that, of people who are completely not damaged by what's taking place right now. And there aren't that many people in Australia. Honestly, there aren't, because people are fearful everywhere. So if there is that number, let's just assume, let's look at the good scenario. There is that number. What then takes place, and this is the one part that everybody And strangely enough, that even includes Dolores Cannon. Everyone's agreed on this part. I don't understand it because I'm a scientist, but I have to give this information because I've had every elder, 15, 20 of them, they've all said the same thing and they don't know each other. The Earth splits into two vibrations for a period of time. There is a lower vibration, which is the 7.8 that we live on from day to day, and a higher vibration of 150 to 200. And they both resonate at exactly the same time on the same material plane, which cannot continue to happen. That breaks all laws of science. Each soul will be drawn towards the resonation that sits with their soul. Okay? Now, if you're, I'm not saying that every CEO is going to be like that because that would be being prejudiced, and that's not the case. But if you're of a lower vibration, I'll use an example. If you're a Bill Gates, that's an easy one because there's no question marks with that. Then your soul will go towards that lower vibration. If your soul is strong and it's powerful and it's positive, it will go towards the higher vibration. And what I've been told, I'm getting more information about this over a period of time, and it won't be minutes. It will be days. It might even be months, and it could even be a couple of years. Each person will be drawn closer and closer towards one or the other way. Now, after this day, after this time we're leading up to, every day that passes, it gets harder to go up and easier to go down. It's not to say that people past that point still can't change and move one way or the other. I'm starting to learn that part. But then there is a point in time where that separation becomes so great that you see those people in the corner of your eye, like a shadow, and they're still there. It's like, instead of like quantum physics where you've got 11 different realities, there becomes a 12th one where the Earth sort of buckles a bit and it accommodates two ways. And then eventually that lower vibration disappears. And when it does, so too do the souls that have locked in with that vibration. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because our presentations, our online conferences are called our Alien Ancestry, What Comes Next. Now, what comes after that? Oh boy, there have been a couple of arguments about that between different interlocutors about which one's right. And the answer is, I don't think we really know for sure, okay? Because there are 3 different theories I've heard. Now, one we can dismiss. For a while, I was told, it was given to me more through a misunderstanding and not presenting the information properly, that the souls on the lower level would be destroyed. And when I was told that, I couldn't accept that. I can't believe that something that was created at the beginning of everything could be destroyed at any case. Now, that's wrong. That is incorrect. That's not going to happen. My understanding and what I've been told is that one of 2 things is going to take place for those souls. The one I'm less, but I'm going to mention it because it's come from a highly respectable source and it could be true. And I've got to tell you, the group that told me the other one said, oh, that could be right too. So we don't know. One of them is that all the souls that did not, I don't know if make the grades the right thing, but step over the small bump that we have to, it's not a hurdle this time, it's just a rock, that didn't get past that. Their souls go into what Jung would have called the collective consciousness, and they become wiped clean. All their experiences, everything they've learned disappears, and they lose their identity, but not their energy. And then they come back out of that collective consciousness again and start as a new soul. That's one story. The other one, I'm more inclined to think, I think that's correct, but that is just a personal opinion, and I don't want to upset the elder who told me the first one, because I'm not taking sides. I'm just telling people what I'm being told. That's my job. And that is that the people who didn't make it incarnate on other planets with the vibrated 7 and 8 and 6. And when they've got those final things they couldn't get, then they come back here. But they can't incarnate here because it's going to be revolving at 150, 200. And if they did, their soul would basically, their body would be destroyed when they were born. It's too dangerous. This planet will evolve from kindergarten to a university. And what people need to understand is, you know why they're all here? Because what happens here resonates not just in Australia, it goes through the world and then goes through the cosmos. This is a dividing line everywhere. This is a major event, and this is what they've been calling it, I've heard that a lot, that takes place in Australia, that goes to the world and then spreads everywhere. Now, what happens is if that takes place, if we get that split, Uluru is charged up. It goes to 5 sites in Australia. I know 3 of them, and I don't know the other 2. One's up at Kimberley, one's down near Carter, Kangaroo Island, Grid Point 44, one up in Arnhem, then one at Carryong, one at the Standing Stone site. Then, from those 5, all the elders call it the Rainbow Ridge. Then it goes across to New Zealand. I don't know where. I was talking about that somewhere yesterday, and they were telling me about somewhere in the North Island. I think it could be there, but I don't know. It's not my business. Once those 6 sites are charged up, it's like a spider web. Every ley line and the planet then gets charged up. And then the whole of the planet starts to charge itself from within. And then what happens is you'll find that the wobble that's in the, as you know, our rotation is wobbling and the Earth is starting to tilt over. That will slowly start to rebalance itself and reset itself as we do. It all happens at the same time. Now, the interesting part of this story, Dean, relates to when I met this interlocutor for the first time and we spoke about this, and we spoke about quite a few things. I've got to tell you, it wasn't a particular cheery or happy conversation. It's about the extinction of the great majority of humanity for a period of time. But not extinction, I mean the body, but not the soul. The soul does not disappear. And the other point you've got to remember, whatever's left on this planet, they will have children. Well, where are we going to get them from? Because we're filled up, we're taken. Everyone is supposed to be here. Where are we going to get the kids from and the grandchildren? They've got to come from somewhere. Now, my understanding is this. We had the conversation finished with, and I said, well, tell me, what percentage of the planet of humans will evolve? And for the first time in the whole conversation, Tim smiled. And he said to me, well, you give me a number. And I said 25%. I said, because I know a lot of people don't get. There's quite a few people who think the things we're talking about, Dean, are ridiculous and stupid, and they make the majority of people on this planet. That may shock you, but it is true. I said, look, I know there's a lot of people like that, but I said, I know a lot of people, humans, a lot of people really do understand love. I said, that's what they came here to do. He said, so I'm going to say 25%. And he looked at me and laughed. I said, what, too low? He said, oh, no, not too low. He said, go down. I said, oh, no, really. I wasn't very happy about that. I said, well, I'll go to 10%. I'll put up with 10%. And he laughed again. And he said, you go low. I said, no, man, I'm not doing that. You're wrong. By the way, you don't ever try and argue with elders when they know what they're talking about. It's a waste of time, and you make yourself look like an idiot. Anyway, I said, no, you're wrong. No, I can't accept that. I said, you tell me. He said, 2 to 3%. I said, well, you told me 98% of the people here right now won't make it. He said, absolutely.
So there'll be about 200 million people left on the planet.
That's what I said, because I did the math straight away, and I came up with some shocking numbers. And in Australia, before the whitefellas came, we had about 1.5 million. I figured out there'd be 500,000 left. It's not enough to run the country. And I said, no, man, you're wrong. He said, why am I wrong? I said, right, then I'm going to pick you on this one. I said, first of all, I said, look, when I got cursed by the skulls, because I got a Pleiadian skull and they tried to kill me, and I was nearly dead. I had people I play tennis with that don't understand this stuff, and I told them I'd been cursed, and I thought I was an idiot. But they rung me up, and they were genuinely concerned about my welfare, and they really were. And I said, there's people like that. He said, oh, really? He said, you come to this planet to incarnate. 2 lessons. That's all we want from you, 2 lessons. 1, to understand love and magic, and 2, to understand why you're here. Don't you understand? You're here to understand what life is about. This is why we come to this place. This is why evil reigns here, because you're challenged. This is what it's all about. And these people don't get it. And you feel because they don't get it, but they're nice people, somehow they should come forward. You've been sent back. Everyone that's here is incarnated time after time after time. And Dean, I hate to say this, we're the dunces. We're the ones that didn't evolve. We came back because we got things wrong. And said, this is the last time. There's a time when everyone has to take a final test. He said, no, that's not good enough. Those people who question this and say it's ridiculous and say this stuff is dumb, I'm not worried about it, they failed one of the two tests they were supposed to. He said they might get 100% in the other one, but if you can't get 51% in both, you can't move forward. I said, all right, okay, well, I'll take the 10% because 10% of the population do understand this. They talk about incarnation. They talk about aliens. They accept this stuff. He said, yes, you're right. I thought, oh, beautiful. He said, but that's not the only thing we're testing you on. He said, now I want to ask you a question. He said to me, have you ever met people that upset you? I said, I live on this planet daily. He said, did they do stupid things? I said, all the time. They said, have you ever been with people who've spoken about the fact that people do these things and tell you how much it annoys them and complain about it? He said, oh, yeah, we all do. He said, tell me something. Do you believe that thoughts have an energy? Oh, yeah. He said, do you believe that negative thoughts have an energy? He said, most definitely. I thought, oh, shit, I know where this is going. He said, right then, tell me, what use are they to us right now? When this change comes, we need pure souls. These people right now are spending their spare time running down someone behind their back. Now, if they spoke to their face, we have no issue with that. Disagreements, we accept. But to do that behind their back, they're putting out negative energy, telling other people one side of the story, saying bad things about them. How's that helping us right now? I sort of went quiet. He said, well, what use are they to us? How can we call their souls when they're spending their day-to-day events backbiting and gossiping about other people? I said, all right, okay. I'll go down to 5%. There's 5% of people who don't do that. He said, oh, really? Don't they? He said, tell me, have you ever been annoyed by a person and thought about it? I said, oh, yeah. He said, are you creating thoughts about these people, negative thoughts about these people? He said, yeah. He said, how's it making you feel? Angry? Oh, good. He said, now tell me, whether a thought has words next to it, does the thought itself have energy? I said, oh, Jesus. I said, yeah, it does. He said, well, it doesn't matter whether they say it. He said, the people we need are people that don't sit there each day saying bad things about anybody, whether they think it or say it. If they have those thoughts inside their head, how can we access their energy? What use is that energy to the planet? The planet has plenty of tainted energy anyway. We expect from this large amount of people we don't have, we need a soul that is clean, that is positive. We can't let them send us negative energy, because if it does come to us, the machine can't accept it. The box will not accept it.
I'm going to have to clean up my game just from earlier today, because I was sending out some pretty bad thoughts about a couple of people well back into my past. So,
Dean, you know what I said when they said that? I said, right then, I said, looks like I'm going up with the 98%. I said, I'm done for, man. I'm out of this. I said, look, I'm still going to try all the way through, but I'll be waving goodbye as they go. I'll be the shadow on the other end.
Yeah.
And it's quite, and she said, but don't forget, she said this. He said to me, he said, no, you're getting judged at the finishing line at 9:04. We need you then. He said, well, in the meantime, if you go through that, every time you go through it, he said, well, you've got to tell people this. We need souls that are clean. I mean, a lot of people are going to say, oh, yeah, I'll be right. I'm there. I understand that. But no, a lot of the hippies are doing the same thing. They're running down the streets and saying they're hopeless and they're bad. And I'm thinking, man, you guys are actually the same as them when you do that. And what they were saying is this, that negativity has infected this planet. And what they were saying is that the planet is supposed to be, this planet is supposed to be an even balance of good and evil, where both can revolve and both can triumph. Well, right now, it can't anymore. The cabal, the reptilians, the draconians, the greys, they run the place, they run everything here, and it's out of balance. That's why this is happening, because the whole purpose of our lives, life itself, is there's two creations. There's a creation of good and a creation of, I call it evil, shadow, because it's not evil.
Right.
I mean, a human will take what the shadow offers and then take it, but they took it. The shadow just presented it. There's a beautiful cartoon I saw once where the God and the devil were playing chess, and the devil said, I can't play anymore. And God said, well, if you can't play, there's no game.
Yeah.
I need you more than me.
Well, if there
Because
wasn't,
without you there.
yeah, I mean, if there wasn't evil, how would you know what it was? What evil was? If it was just
And how
good.
would your soul progress? And when you came at the end of your life and you said, went to your maker, and they said, what have you learned when you went to Earth? Oh, beautiful fish.
Mm.
Birds are pretty. But what did you actually learn? Oh, I stubbed my toe one day. That was a bit of grief for me. Did you have any problems? Oh, no. Had a great vacation. Then your soul hasn't been tested. So therefore, evil, original people and all indigenous people don't fear this shadow. They honor it. And that's something we've got to understand. The problem is that some people now let this shadow take over the whole of this planet.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand, that this planet is how can I put this? It's a light switch. It's a switch that relates to all the other planets. You've got to understand, can I tell you a story about one of my elders? He's passed on. I've got to be very careful because my main three elders have all passed on, so I can't give you their full names. His name is Uncle Marbach, and he was reading the rocks one day like no one's ever read the rocks. He was just on fire. He was telling me all this stuff about it, and I didn't write it down. It's going for hours. And he was talking about the aliens and the Pleiadians, and this is about 2 o'clock in the morning. We're all getting pretty tired. And he started to talk about them. I said, Uncle Marbach, I said, I hear you guys talking about this all the time. And even for the very first time I got ceremony, they said, you're going to talk about the aliens. I said, I wouldn't. I said, I don't get this. I said, I look around today at the world and all we're doing is killing each other. We pollute the planet. We kill the animals. We kill each other. We fight each other. We don't get on. Why would anyone come here to watch us fight in the sandpit? I said, I just can't get. I said, I don't have an issue with the fact they're aliens. That's not a problem for me. I just thought they'd have more common sense. If they're going to watch a game or watch a movie, why go watch a movie where you got kids squabbling in the sandpit all the time, non-stop? And the worst part is all the women have been thrown out of the sandpit, and they were always used to calm us down, so they're not there anymore. And if you're not the right colour, you're not allowed in the sandpit. It's got out of control. And he smiled at me. He said, can't you see it? He said, we have one thing on this planet that no one else has.
Love.
I said, what? A bad attitude? He said, no. He said, and of course, then you got to be careful with this. When you ask an elder a question, you know what you get back? A question. You don't get an answer. And he said to me, I want you to think of the first alien that was ever presented in a caring, benevolent fashion that had a real empathy towards humans. And it was fictional. And I said, but it's science fiction. Well, I didn't listen properly because I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. So I asked you about something completely different. I didn't want to start talking about Hollywood. And I said, oh, God, my favourite Martian, because that's pretty old. He said, no, science fiction. I don't want silly comedies. I want something that does it seriously. Oh, I couldn't think of it. And he's smiling. Come on. What happened? I said, oh, I don't know. I'm bloody Yoda, something like that, Star Wars. Oh, no, you got that wrong. Way too late. In the end, he's put me out of my misery because I was lost. He said, Dr. Spock, Star Trek.
Mr. Spock.
Oh, yeah. I said, oh, I get that. Yeah. I said, I get it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he was the first one. He was before them. He said, what is it about Dr. Spock? Did he understand humans? Nah, not really. He said, why did he stay with them? I said, well, he said, look, think about this. It was their emotions. He could never quite understand the emotions, the fact that we're irrational. And he said he couldn't understand one emotion in particular. It was the emotion of love. He said it is the most powerful force in the cosmos. He said, but this is the planet that creates it. This is the creation of that. We live on a planet that radiates pure love. And he said, that is why they came here. Because he said, Dr. Spock, he had compassion. He knew what was right and wrong, but he could never quite understand why humans worked the way they did. He said, they don't either. That's why they come here. He said, when humans are at their best, when they're shamans, when they're clever fellas, they can do any magic that no other group can do. I mean, you take Kano. Carno was with us, with Graham Hancock, and you can ask Graham and he'll tell you exactly the same story, and 9 other people. And Graham spent about 6 days with us in country. And the deal was, if you do that, you have to spend 1 day, blackfella, Olway, and go through ceremony. So Carno he did this ceremony. He turned up at the fire there. Graham, I was sitting next to Graham at the time, I was making, and he's done up Olway. All paint across there, just a lap there, all coloured over, singing song, Olway songs. And he sings these songs for a while, talks a bit in language. Then he walks back 1 step from the fire pit. We're all watching him. Then he walks back the second one and disappears completely. No one can see him. Graham's mouth is, because Graham's pretty good at talking. He couldn't speak for a minute. Nor could I, to be honest. No one could. And then about 10 seconds later, he reappears about 50 metres away behind his wife with a huge smile on his face, and no one said a word to him, of course. And someone came up later, not me, because I wasn't going to ask him, and asked, "What are you doing? How did you do that?" He said, "What? When you disappeared?" I said, "That trick, that party trick." He said, "Why don't you do it?" He said, "What are you talking about? I can't do it." He said, "Every human on this planet can do this." He said, "I just know how to. You forgot. I didn't." He said, "We don't forget these things." Now, I could spend the next 20 minutes talking about stuff Carno did that breaks all the laws. What they're saying is that's what's coming back. That's what we're supposed to come back to. And that's what we had. And that's why they came. That's why the Pleiadians came. See, I've got this rock here. I'm just going to hold it up now. I don't know if you can see it. Yep. This particular rock. This is called Ros's Rock 1. And the dreaming story with this one is this particular rock, and there's the other side until it's got markings on it. And Carno told me the story. He said, "This is the goanna." Now, the goanna is the giver of wisdom. The rainbow serpent creates, goanna gives us wisdom. The goanna is also Pleiades. Now, the goanna came here in a ship and wanted to land here, but we, original people, wouldn't let them land, and we stopped them with our magic. And the eagle and the crow fought against the goanna and stopped them from landing. You've got to understand that. We stopped the spaceship from landing with our magic.
Wow.
Then the crow realized that they should come and join the goanna and defeated us. And then when they landed, the eagle came up and gave the goanna a token of the fact they won the battle. Now, I know that today when we win the battle, we blow up the enemy, put the boot in and then wipe them out. Well, that didn't work that way. So what happened there was the eagle gave the goanna its claws, and then according to Carno, the Pleiadians scratched their laws onto this rock. This is the rock that bears testimony to the Pleiadians coming here. And then Carno said, "You took that story and turned it into the 10 Commandments." He said, "This is the 10 Commandments, that rock." And that rock, when that message came from above, that was the Pleiadians.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was the story of the Pleiadians.
Yeah, and just to explain to people, you're basically telling a dreaming story.
Yes, that was a dreaming story about the beginning of the Pleiadians joining us. And they joined us in every possible form. And I mean every possible way. They slept with us. We have children. All of the original people are part Pleiadian. Now, it's well known the original people have a strand of mitochondrial DNA that doesn't belong to anyone else, and we can't identify it.
Wow.
Yes, you can. It's Pleiadian. That belongs to the Pleiadian. The original people have Denisovan. The original people have Neanderthal. The original people have strands that no one else has. The African people don't have Denisovan. The African people don't have Neanderthal, but we're supposed to come from Africans. That doesn't even make sense to begin with.
So the original people of Australia, I believe, are they the oldest people on the planet?
Absolutely. That's why we came here first, and that's why we were seeded with Pleiadian genes.
Right.
And that is why our genes, everyone has within us Pleiadian genes. Because when we went out and we went out to the rest of the world to share our genes, it means that when this change comes, and that crystal reverberates, you've got to remember something, ladies and gentlemen. You've got mitochondrial DNA inside that's going to reverberate to that. And that gives you the chance to turn on too. And it's what they did was they left a switch there, but they left a cord, and it runs to every being on this planet. So when that actual ceremony takes place on the 21st, and that resonation begins, no one will escape it, because it's locked into your DNA. Now, we have a ridiculous situation where our scientists will tell you we have what's called junk DNA. And we're told that we use about 15% of our brain and we've got junk DNA, but they don't tell you about any other animal having that.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. If Lucy used 100% of her brain, she'd be twice as smart as us today. We only use 15% of our brain and we think that's normal. In the past, we used all of it. And that's why Kano could disappear and reappear. That's why Kano could ring me up one day and tell me what we did on country when he was 3,000 k's away, because he said a red kangaroo told him everything we did and gave me a warning and told if I did it again, I'd die if I went into country. Now, he was talking to a red kangaroo. And what we'd done 4 hours before when he was 3,000 k's away. Well, all those things I'm telling you are true, and they're part of what we can do. And this is what this particular day is about. And what we're doing is we're running online conferences every month through to the 21st of December. And every one of them, I'll be repeating the prophecy. I mean, I'll do a lot more than what I'm doing today, because today was a shorter version of it. And every time, I don't care if the people have heard it before, they get to hear it in the next one. And then when more comes in, I add to it as we go through, because everything else we'll do will be different, because we could do probably 15 online conferences and not repeat ourselves. So don't worry, we won't repeat ourselves otherwise, but that one is the focal point of every one of our conferences, because we've been asked by the elders to get this out because the numbers aren't high enough. This is what they said. 2 to 3% is not enough to run this planet the way it's got to be run properly, because we can't go back to become hunter-gatherers.
Yeah. When's the next conference?
We're doing one on the end of this month. I think it's the 30th. We do it every Sunday. And I think on this one, we've got Paul Wallace, who's an archdeacon from Canberra, who's reread Genesis and says, no, it's all about aliens coming here and seeding us. And we're bringing him on because that's exactly what I just told you before. Mind you, he's still an archdeacon in Canberra. And a lot of his colleagues said, I still respect you, but I refuse to read your book.
Well,
he's been on Coast to Coast with George Norris, so he's really pushing some boundaries up there. So we brought him on.
I'd love to talk to him too, Paul Wallace.
Paul Wallace. Well, yeah, mate, he's going to be coming on, and he's going to be talking about the fact, no, guys, you read Genesis Strong. It's about aliens coming here. It wasn't what you thought it was. So we're bringing him on because it fits in with what we're talking about. We're also bringing on a lady called TJ that worked for 10 years on Gaia, Ancient Aliens, because the strongest archaeological links we have in the world are in America. Now, we know the original people were there for hundreds of thousands of years before the second wave came in. And you can ask the Hopi, you can ask the Navajo, they'll tell you that. There were people there when they got there. We were there. And what we say is that of all the different groups, it's the Navajo, it's the Hopi, it's the Inuit people who are living the dreaming. The differences between the way they live and the way we live, infinitesimal. 1% differences. So we're going to do a lot more about America. So we're bringing in TJ that worked there for 10 years. She's now in Australia to talk about that. And what we do each time is we bring people in that add another part, either to our alien ancestry or what comes next. I mean, Michael Tellinger's really pushing in Butu, as you may know. And I'm going to ask him, I'm actually we're doing something together we're doing once a week. We're doing a 1-hour session. I'm going to ask him tonight. In fact, I'm not telling you before I ask him if he's going to join us. I want him to talk about Butu in one of our conversations, because what comes next is really important. Because it won't be like we live anymore. You've got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the first time we've gone down this technological path and fallen on our backside. It's happened 4 times before. And there's stories about Atlantis and Lemuria where one went one way and one went the other. This is the culmination of all the previous mistakes, where it all comes to one final decision on where we go.
Right.
So primarily, the Pleiadians came here a long time ago to start something, to clear something up. And now is the time that actually happens. And it's humans for all our faults, that are at least the equal of any other life form in the cosmos. And in some respects, and people have got to understand that. Remember, in the dreaming story, the Pleiadians couldn't get here until we accepted that they could come. Because at that stage, as Kano says this all the time, this rock comes from a time when we had more DNA than we've got now. What he meant was, not that we had more DNA in there, but we used it all. And imagine if we were using 100% of our brain rather than 15%, and 100% of our DNA inside, we wouldn't be like we are now.
No.
We really wouldn't. Magic would be like breathing. What Kano's done, I've been lucky, and most people don't see this. I've sat with a human that has created what humans call miracles, right? And I've seen him do five miracles that you can't do. No human can do it, but he can. Now, when you do it 5 times, and he calls them party tricks. I mean, I remember we were on the Standing Stone side, and he called up 8 hawks that circled above him in a figure 8, sung them up. Now, hawks are not flock animals. And we went there to get permission from the spirits to do work on country. So he sits there, breaks into Wild Fella's song, and 8 hawks circle above him. What can I do? I couldn't call a budgie. I couldn't get one bird to come to me. Man, I couldn't get anything to come. But he can get 8 to circle above me. Then he tells me, follow that shadow and run with it and get the rest of the people. So I follow a shadow of a hawk that's on the ground in front of me, and it takes me back to the rest of the mob there. What's going on there? That's magic. Mm-hmm. But that's part of what humans were. And then what's happened is they took it off us. And they took it off us. And think of this. There's a guy called Steiner who warned us there'd be a vaccine 100 years ago that would take place that would cut our connection to our soul completely. And he warned us 100 years ago this was going to happen. That vaccine is on its way right now.
Right, yeah.
Once the connection to our soul is connected, we are no longer humans. We're robots. Because the reason they came here is because the planet is full of magic, and we were too. And think about this. Look at your own Whitefella history. You're going to find people like Merlin there. What was he? He was a magician. Nostradamus, what was he? A magician. And why is it, ladies and gentlemen, they stayed in the courts? If they didn't perform, you know what they would have done? They would have killed them. Mm-hmm. How come they kept them there? Because they were doing magic. They were doing that stuff. And now, Indigenous people, they had their shamans, their clever fellas were doing magic, and they were regarded as being special. They were the top of the tribe, weren't they? Guess where they are now? They're not there. Yeah. They're gone. There's no such thing as magic. Ask a scientist, I'll tell you it doesn't exist. Ask Kano. He'll tell you it's a party trick. Mm-hmm. I know which one I believe.
Yeah.
I'll go for the party trick any day, not the laboratory.
For sure. Stevan, we're right out of time, so we'll have to end it here. But it's been fascinating, and I'll post the link to the next conference on the site, and encourage people to come on and have a listen. And as you said, it's pretty urgent.
It is, because we've got a coronavirus making people feel negative. And what I'm saying to people is, when they talk like this, and you've heard about this, interrupt that conversation and give them some light. Mm-hmm. That's what this is all about. Because right now they're giving us darkness, and there needs to be light at the end of the tunnel. There is. That's at Uluru. And what I'm going to ask people on the day is, on that time, wherever you are in the world, what time it is, I don't care. Go outside, face the rock, and meditate and send your energy there. That's what we're going to need. We're going to need a lot of it. Yep. So yeah, look, thank you very much for asking us on. We appreciate that. And let's just hope there is a change, because I can tell you now, if the old ones can't do it, the Indigenous people can't do it, don't rely on the cabal. They won't do it.
No, it's an upside down world. Thanks, Stevan. We'll talk with you again soon.
Thank you. Thanks, mate.